She thought she had it all figured out until he disappeared, and that's when reality hit her like a ton of bricks. Have you ever wondered what someone truly feels when they realize they lost someone who actually cared? Every little thing you did, every moment she took for granted, suddenly becomes crystal clear, and the regret, it's brutal. Stick around till the end of this video because I'm revealing the 8 harsh truths that hit hardest when absence makes the heart finally see the truth. Trust me, this will change how you see relationships forever. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Join our community so you never miss the truth that most people are too afraid to face. You know, one of the most painful yet illuminating truths comes when a woman suddenly realizes your true value, but only after you've disappeared from her life. It's strange how absence has this uncanny ability to strip away the distractions, the noise, the excuses, and lay bare what she truly had. While you were present, she may have taken things for granted. The small gestures, the subtle ways you made her life easier, the way you listened when she didn't even realize she needed it. All of it blended into the background. Presence, after all, can become invisible. But the moment you step away, that invisibility disappears, and she begins to see things in sharp focus. Every smile you gave that felt effortless, every ounce of patience she dismissed, suddenly becomes monumental. It's almost like the human brain refuses to fully appreciate value until it's confronted with the vacuum of absence. Psychologically, this isn't just about missing someone. It's about recognition. She starts replaying moments, analyzing conversations, and realizing how often she brushed off your attention, thinking it would always be there. And here's the thing, what she experiences isn't just regret, it's cognitive dissonance. She thought she had control, that she understood the dynamics of her relationships. But the reality of your absence forces a confrontation with uncomfortable truths. She begins to understand that some presences are irreplaceable, not because they're perfect, but because they offer stability, respect, and emotional clarity that many people can't provide. There's also a philosophical layer to this realization. Life has this way of teaching lessons through voids. When you're gone, she's left with a mirror reflecting not just your absence, but her own choices and behaviors that may have contributed to the distance. She sees the patterns she ignored, the moments she dismissed, and the opportunities she squandered. In psychology, this is called the contrast effect, when the absence of a valued stimulus amplifies its perceived importance. What once felt ordinary suddenly feels extraordinary, and this sudden clarity is not gentle. It hits hard because it's unfiltered and unavoidable. She cannot ignore it, and she cannot rewind time. Emotionally, this revelation is brutal. She begins to feel the weight of missed opportunities, the warmth of moments she can't reclaim, and the sting of realization that someone she might have considered ordinary was, in fact, extraordinary in ways she only notices in hindsight. It's a humbling, sometimes shattering experience. She may try to rationalize it, to convince herself she was too busy, too independent, or too strong to need anyone in that way. But deep down, she feels the absence as a void that no one else can fill. Your presence represented more than companionship. It was a blend of reliability, understanding, and the rare capacity to make someone feel truly seen. And when it's gone, the truth is unavoidable. She has lost something real. What makes this even more compelling is the irony of timing. While she was living with you, perhaps frustrated or seeking something else, she didn't see the uniqueness of what she had. Life's cruel yet enlightening way is that recognition often comes late. But the pain of that recognition isn't wasted, it's instructive. She learns that presence, consistency, and emotional investment are not commodities to be taken lightly. They are, in fact, rare gifts that can be overlooked until absence teaches their true worth. This is why some of the deepest regrets aren't about fights, misunderstandings, or even betrayals. They're about failure to appreciate the ordinary, the steady, the unwavering. And here's the final psychological insight: absence not only reveals value, it shapes memory. The human mind has a tendency to idealize what it loses. She may begin to remember the laughter, the support, and the quiet ways you improved her life as larger than life. This idealization isn't just nostalgia, it's a lesson in perception. It forces her to confront that people who consistently contribute to our well-being are irreplaceable. She may try to find someone else, but she will notice subtle gaps, inconsistencies, and deficiencies that remind her of what she lost. In essence, your disappearance isn't just a physical absence. It becomes a psychological and emotional benchmark against which she measures everything else. So, what does all this leave her with? Clarity, regret, and an undeniable truth. She can no longer take people for granted, and she now understands that your value was never about what she could see superficially. It was deeper, it was enduring, and it was real. The lesson is brutal, yes, but transformative. And that's why absence is so powerful. It doesn't just make her miss you, it forces her to see the reality she refused to acknowledge before. When you leave, she finally understands, in ways words alone could never convey, that your presence wasn't just part of her life, it was a standard, a benchmark, and a mirror reflecting the best version of herself. And the most profound part, that lesson doesn't fade. It lingers, shaping how she values the people who remain and how she recognizes real worth in the future. So remember, this presence is invisible until it vanishes, and value is often unseen until it's gone. The true power of your absence isn't just that she regrets losing you. It's that she finally sees clearly what was always there. And that clarity, that truth, it's hers to carry forever. When you step away, one of the most striking realizations she faces is how often she underestimated or dismissed your boundaries. At the time, she might have seen them as rigidity or distance, as if you were unwilling to bend or compromise. But in reality, those boundaries were the very markers of your integrity, the invisible lines that defined your self-respect and the value you brought to the relationship. And it's only in your absence that she begins to see the significance of those limits. She realizes that your boundaries weren't arbitrary. They were a measure of how much you were willing to invest in someone who reciprocated care, respect, and commitment. Without them, she begins to understand that the balance she once took for granted required more thought, more patience, and more intentionality than she had appreciated. There's a subtle psychological principle at work here. People often conflate accessibility with affection. She may have assumed that your willingness to give time, energy, or attention was limitless, that your presence would always be there to absorb her moods, her tests, her emotional experiments. But what she failed to notice is that boundaries are the quiet architects of attraction. They create tension, they cultivate respect, and they define worth. Once you're gone, she suddenly perceives the beauty in restraint, the power of holding space, and the quiet confidence of someone who does not bend for every whim. That realization, when it hits, is sharp, almost unsettling. She begins to reflect on the moments she pushed limits or disregarded your independence, thinking it was inconsequential. Maybe she mocked your routines, questioned your choices, or tried to sway your principles for convenience or control. And in hindsight, she starts to feel the weight of what she tried to alter and why it mattered to you. It's not just regret, it's comprehension. She sees that your independence and consistency weren't obstacles to intimacy, they were the foundation of it. Your presence wasn't simply about being there, it was about being fully yourself while inviting her to meet you on equal terms. Philosophically, this is a profound moment. Boundaries are the invisible scaffolding that support emotional health and relational longevity. They are not walls, they are definitions of self, the parameters that ensure connection does not erode into complacency, entitlement, or dependence. And when she experiences your absence, she realizes that she may have once viewed these structures as restrictive, but in truth, they were protective for both of you. The irony is that the very thing she may have resisted becomes the element she now craves and understands as essential. Emotionally, this insight can hit hard. She might feel remorse for having tested your limits, for not recognizing that your boundaries were not signs of coldness, but of commitment to authenticity and integrity. Every moment she tried to manipulate, persuade or push you to compromise becomes a lesson she cannot ignore. She begins to see that your patience was not passive, your consistency was not mechanical, your principles were not stubborn. They were the framework of a character worth respecting. And now that framework is absent, leaving a void that she struggles to fill. This awareness also brings a new lens on personal responsibility. She realizes that her actions had consequences, not just for her own life, but for the connection she shared with you. By ignoring or challenging your limits, she inadvertently diminished the value of what she had. Absence, in this sense, becomes the teacher she cannot avoid. She sees clearly that emotional intelligence is not about control. It's about recognition, respect, and the capacity to honor boundaries without resentment or fear. It's also an intellectual awakening. The mind, when faced with the stark reality of loss, begins to reframe the past. She recalls the countless times she may have assumed your flexibility was infinite. And now she understands that it was finite, intentional, and meaningful. She begins to recognize that a person who respects themselves creates a rare form of magnetism, one that draws others not through desperation or convenience, but through admiration and genuine desire. And she realizes that she cannot easily replicate this dynamic with anyone else, because boundaries require discipline, self-awareness, and moral consistency, qualities that are often rare and undervalued. When she finally comprehends this, the regret is double-edged. She mourns not only the absence of your presence, but the absence of understanding she could have embraced sooner. She recognizes that love, attraction, and respect are not unconditional. They thrive within the space of mutual recognition, shared integrity, and respect for each other's principles. Without these, connections become fleeting and hollow, and she now sees that she once held in her hands a relationship rooted in something far deeper than mere affection. It was built on mutual accountability, respect, and the kind of emotional intelligence few ever encounter. The final takeaway is profound and unmistakable. Boundaries are not barriers, they are the blueprint of value. And when she realizes this in your absence, she finally grasps a truth that she may have overlooked. The very thing she resisted, challenged, or disregarded was the cornerstone of your worth. Without it, the connection collapses, leaving her with clarity, regret, and an indelible lesson she cannot unlearn. So here's the reflection for her and for anyone listening. True respect and attraction are cultivated through integrity and limits. When those limits are gone, absence becomes a mirror of what was never fully appreciated, and the lesson lingers. If you don't honor boundaries while they're present, you may only learn their value when it's too late. When you disappear, one of the most striking and unavoidable truths she faces is that some people cannot be replaced. This is not about ego or pride. It's about rarity, depth, and the subtle qualities that define real value. In the daily rhythm of life, it's easy to assume that someone who treats you well, who listens, who invests emotionally can simply be substituted. But absence exposes the illusion. She begins to encounter others, and almost instinctively, her mind compares them, not consciously at first, but in subtle, persistent ways. The patience you displayed, the consistency of your support, the quiet ways you made her feel understood. These are qualities that cannot be replicated overnight. And as she experiences the void you left behind, she starts to understand that what she lost wasn't ordinary. There is a psychological principle at play here called the scarcity effect. When something or someone is rare or unique, our brains automatically assign them higher value. While you were present, she may have taken for granted the extraordinary within the ordinary. The way your gestures, attention, and presence quietly reinforced stability and emotional security. Once you're gone, she feels the absence of that rarity, and every new interaction is measured against a standard she didn't even know existed. This is why attempts to replace someone like you almost always fall short. It's not that others lack effort. It's that they lack the precise combination of qualities that made you irreplaceable. Philosophically, this moment is a humbling lesson. Life teaches us that human connections are not commodities. You cannot simply exchange one for another and expect the same outcome. Every person brings a unique combination of experiences, empathy, values, and emotional intelligence. And when she realizes that the regret hits differently, it is no longer abstract, it becomes personal and tangible. She sees the absence as a mirror reflecting the depth she once overlooked. And in that mirror, she realizes that some relationships are more than companionship. They are benchmarks for understanding what real connection feels like. Emotionally, this realization is often intense. She starts to feel the weight of what she lost in ways that are not easily articulated. She notices the subtle ways others fall short, the little gaps that no one can fill, the conversations that lack depth, the attention that feels transactional rather than genuine. And with every passing day, she begins to understand that she didn't just lose someone who cared. She lost someone whose presence shaped her life in ways she cannot recreate. The regret is sharp because it is grounded in recognition. It's the understanding that she once had access to something profound, and now it exists only as memory and lesson. She also begins to reflect on her own role in the loss. She recognizes patterns, behaviors, and attitudes that may have contributed to your departure. Perhaps she took your patience for granted, tested your limits, or failed to see the depth of your commitment. And in doing so, she confronts a difficult truth. The people who are truly valuable are often appreciated too late. The absence is brutal, not because of distance alone, but because it forces a confrontation with her own past choices and misjudgments. It is a dual pain, the loss of you, and the realization that she could have acted differently. Intellectually, this is a pivotal awakening. She begins to understand that the qualities that made you irreplaceable are rare and deliberate. Emotional intelligence, loyalty, patience, consistency, and a quiet strength are not attributes that can be manufactured or replicated. She sees clearly that relationships are not built on temporary convenience or superficial charm. They are nurtured through intention, respect, and mutual recognition. And when those qualities are absent, she recognizes their worth in stark contrast. Every other interaction becomes a subtle reminder of what she lost, a measure against which she cannot escape comparison. There is also a long-term effect on her perception of relationships. She learns to value depth over immediacy, patience over impulsivity, and substance over spectacle. This realization can reshape how she approaches connections in the future. She may become more discerning, more appreciative, and more cautious, not out of cynicism, but out of the knowledge that some connections are irreplaceable and must be valued while they are present. And this lesson, once internalized, carries weight for the rest of her life. Ultimately, the absence of someone like you creates a vacuum that is impossible to fill. She realizes that love and connection are not about replacing a person. They are about recognizing their unique contribution to her life and the irreplaceable qualities that person embodied. The regret she feels is a reflection of clarity, a truth that cannot be ignored. She cannot replicate the depth, the patience, the understanding, or the constancy that made you who you were. And that understanding, as painful as it is also instructive. So, as she reflects on what she has lost, she is left with something profoundly important: insight. Insight into value, into uniqueness, and into the consequences of taking rare connections for granted. She may wish to turn back time, but the truth remains: what is gone cannot be easily recovered. And that truth, while painful, serves as a powerful reminder. The people who genuinely shape our lives, who elevate us, and who bring out the best in us are rare. Their absence is a lesson we cannot afford to ignore. And here's the closing reflection: some people are not replaceable, and once they are gone, the void they leave behind is both a lesson and a mirror. The clarity that comes with absence is undeniable, unrelenting, and unforgettable. If she or anyone listening doesn't recognize and honor what they have while it's present, the realization will come too late. And that is a truth that resonates far beyond regret. It is a call to see, appreciate, and act before absence teaches the lesson in the harshest way.